Ancient Egypt is remembered for its golden tombs, monumental pyramids, and gods walking the earth through their pharaohs. But behind the grandeur of temples and royal courts lay a world filled with blood, fear, and silent conspiracies. Death in Egypt was not always natural. It was sometimes calculated, planned, executed in the shadows of the palace and within the walls of sacred temples. Pharaohs held ultimate power, but with power came enemies, visible and invisible. Rivals within the family, jealous officials, ambitious priests, foreign emissaries with secrets and hidden daggers. The first victims were often those closest to the throne, children born to rival queens, brothers waiting for their chance, advisors whose loyalty wavered even slightly. Sometimes, murder was ceremonial, a hidden blade during a ritual feast, poisoned wine offered in the name of the gods, accidents staged to look natural. And the terrifying part, history often hides these crimes. Official records only mention funerals and triumphs. The truth survives in fragments, destroyed tombs, mutilated mummies, and cryptic inscriptions. Take the case of Pharaoh Smenkhkare. His reign was brief, mysterious, and shrouded in secrecy. Some historians suspect he was assassinated, eliminated by conspirators who wanted power for themselves. Yet no tomb has been found to confirm his fate. His body, like the truth, disappeared. Even kings were not immune to poison. Ramses III, one of the mightiest rulers, survived wars and rebellions, only to face a violent conspiracy within his own palace. His harem plotted against him, officials colluded in silence, and assassination was attempted during a ritual ceremony. The attackers were punished, but the fear lingered, because in Egypt, death was never final. Curses, spells, and mummification ensured that even the dead could influence the living. Assassination was not always political. Some deaths were personal, rooted in jealousy or ambition.
Children of queens sometimes vanished,
Believed to be eliminated before they could inherit the throne.
Priests sometimes removed rivals under the guise of religious necessity, and foreigners were sometimes sacrificed to maintain divine favor. Their deaths presented as offerings to the gods, but in reality, they were tools of political manipulation. Even outside the palace, mysterious deaths shaped Egyptian society. Officials disappeared, their tombs left unfinished. Soldiers died under suspicious circumstances during campaigns. Sometimes, priests themselves were killed if they failed to perform rituals correctly or sided with the wrong faction. Ancient texts hint at these hidden plots. Papyrus fragments speak of betrayal, fear, and revenge encoded in stories and spells. The hieroglyphs themselves often conceal warnings about enemies, unseen threats, and the consequences of ambition. Death in ancient Egypt was not a finality. It was another weapon in the arsenal of the powerful. Even after burial, enemies could be punished. Mummies could be cursed. Tombs were booby-trapped. Magic ensured that betrayal in life could continue after death. But for most victims, the truth remains a mystery. Bodies lost to time, names erased, fates left to speculation. The palace, temples, and tombs were stages for intrigue, betrayal, and death. A deadly theater where the pharaoh ruled not only with power, but with fear. The deeper we look into ancient Egypt, the darker the truth becomes. Pharaohs did not simply die of old age. They were assassinated, poisoned, and strangled in ways carefully designed to leave no trace. And often, their deaths were only the beginning of a chain reaction that would consume entire dynasties. Take the case of Pharaoh Tutankhamun. His death at a young age is still debated. Some believe it was accidental. Others claim it was orchestrated, perhaps by advisors seeking control after the death of the king's powerful predecessors.
Modern examinations suggest trauma, infection, and possibly foul play. The mummy reveals more questions than answers, and the secrecy surrounding the court only deepens the mystery. Royal children were especially vulnerable. Young heirs disappeared quietly. Some were buried hastily, without proper rites. In the Egyptian belief system, this meant the soul could not reach the afterlife, a death not only of the body, but of eternal existence. Some historians suspect that rival queens orchestrated these deaths to secure power for their own children. Political ambition and maternal devotion intersected with lethal consequences. Even adult rulers lived in constant danger. Ramses III faced the infamous harem conspiracy. Queens, priests, and officials plotted to assassinate him while he slept. Evidence shows that multiple attackers were involved, attempting murder through strangulation and ritual poison. The king survived temporarily, only to die from his injuries later. The conspirators were executed, but their names erased from monuments, leaving a chilling warning for anyone daring to defy royal authority. And assassinations were often ritualized. Murder was not just political, it was spiritual. Pharaohs and high priests believed that eliminating rivals required careful adherence to ceremonial acts. A blade had to be pure, the murder performed at the correct time, with precise offerings to the gods. Failing these rules could render the act meaningless and invite the wrath of divine forces. Even foreign envoys and nobles were targets. Visitors to the palace sometimes vanished without record. Accidents staged to appear natural. Officials quietly executed for minor infractions, or simply to remove competition. Their deaths were recorded in only the vaguest of hieroglyphs, or ignored altogether, leaving modern historians to reconstruct conspiracies from fragmentary evidence. Mysterious deaths were not confined to the living.
After death, mummies could become instruments of fear. Enemies might be cursed through spells, their souls bound in coffins designed to torment them eternally. Graves were booby-trapped, tombs marked with threats. Disturb my rest and face eternal destruction. These measures ensured that betrayal and punishment extended beyond the grave. But sometimes, the conspiracies were horrifyingly personal. Brothers murdered brothers, husbands plotted against wives, heirs plotted against parents. Pregnancies, marriages, and births became tools in a deadly political game. Even the gods were invoked to justify these actions. Divine sanction often disguised human ambition. Courts and palaces became labyrinths of fear. Secret passages, hidden rooms, and concealed weapons ensured that no one was ever truly safe. Every advisor, priest, or servant could be both ally and threat. Every conversation potentially deadly. And survival depended on both cunning and paranoia. The most chilling aspect is that these deaths were rarely witnessed. The records left behind are cryptic. Papyrus fragments hint at betrayal. Tombs show hurried burials, names erased, bodies mutilated or buried in secrecy. Modern technology has revealed
what ancient Egyptians themselves tried to hide: the scars of trauma on mummies, the unusual positions of bones, signs of strangulation, blunt force, or poisoned wounds. Yet even today, some mysteries cannot be solved. Pharaohs whose murders were never recorded, heirs who vanished without explanation, mummies that show evidence of violence but offer no clues to the perpetrators. In ancient Egypt, death was never simple. It was political, it was spiritual, it was a weapon. A ruler's enemies were not merely killed, they were erased, cursed, denied eternal life. And this fear permeated every level of society. Officials moved carefully. Priests wielded hidden influence.
Children were taught spells before they could walk, not for protection, but to survive the hidden dangers of court intrigue. By the end, the message was clear. Survival depended not on skill or virtue alone. It depended on foresight, loyalty, and the constant calculation of human ambition. Mysterious deaths and assassinations in ancient Egypt were not anomalies. They were inevitable consequences of absolute power. The pharaoh ruled not only with divine authority, but with fear, manipulation, and the ruthless elimination of anyone who stood in the way. Even millennia later, the whispers of these murders remain, in tombs, in mummies, in erased names. The shadows of ambition, betrayal, and blood continue to haunt the land of the Nile.